As we get into this today, please type your questions in the chat. Also be aware though that we have some demos and we have a lot to go over, and it's possible we may not get to every question. We'll do our best, but if not, we'll get those questions handed out and answered after the fact. But please throw them in the chat, and if we cover the topic already, then we'll just cover it. Otherwise, we'll try to get those answered. 1 hour ACVREP credit, as you know. We do have closed captioning available today. So thank you for bringing that, and feel free to take advantage of that if it will help you. We have 2 presenters today. We have from APH, Justine Taylor, who's our low vision product manager, and Ben Knolles, who has done ZoomText webinars in the past with us and for Vispero. He's an assistive technology engineer for the Paciello Group Interactive, and they are a division of Vispero. I guess division is the best way to put that. So let's talk about some things that may be challenges for you or for your students. Sometimes it's time consuming to go between different magnification levels. You know, you use one for one program, you use another for another program, and it can be difficult to go through and make those changes. You may have different preferred settings for individual programs. That goes right along with that. If it's difficult to make those changes or it gets cumbersome, then maybe you don't want to make those changes and you have to keep setting them. Even worse, sometimes you lose your settings when you relaunch ZoomText, and that can be frustrating, no question. Sometimes it's difficult to figure out what magnification, color, and speech output is best for each student. It's going to be different from student to student. How do you make the determination of what's best? Sometimes there's a perception that it's not worth your time making your changes and saving your settings all the time. And some people just don't realize that you can save your settings in ZoomText and how helpful that can actually be. So we'll address those things today. And I think you'll learn that not only can you make those changes, but you can save them and really make things easier for you in the long run once you make the changes. So let's talk about our objectives. So we're going to summarize what's called the Functional Vision Learning Media Assessment outcomes that form and teach the team how best to modify ZoomText. You'll hear about what that assessment is, and we'll see how that can work with ZoomText and different student profiles. We'll talk about 3 benefits of customizing the general settings in ZoomText. We'll list the steps to modify ZoomText settings in a specific computer application. And to get us started, Justine is going to talk about that assessment. Justine?
All right. If we can move to the next slide. We have the functional vision assessment, and it kind of consists of these 5 different categories. And what you want to do is you always start with sort of a review of the low vision exam and the eye report of the student or the client that you're working with. You're going to want to kind of review, the first thing they will do is get a low vision exam, and you're going to want to get a copy of their eye report and kind of evaluate that. And then the next thing you would do is some interviews. So you would interview teachers and parents and family members and the individual themselves, and kind of determine their needs and their struggles that they're having, and then you're going to do some observations. So you'll observe them in the classroom, in their work environment, at home, and then you'll do an O&M screening and a physical education observation, and then you're going to kind of determine if there's any interventions and accommodations that are needed. So those are just kind of the broad 5 categories that you'll do for a functional vision assessment. And then we can move to the next slide, and you can see the specific components that you're going to evaluate and kind of get more details. So During a functional vision assessment, you're gonna evaluate the appearance of their eyes, any behavioral abnormalities, visual response to objects, and their visual response to light. You're gonna assess their visual fields, any color contrast discrimination, light sensitivity, and their preferences of lighting, their visual perception skills, and near acuity and distance acuity. So those are the specific parts of the FEA that you're gonna evaluate. So then we'll move on to the learning media assessment. Is sort of a separate assessment that you're gonna do to determine the student's best learning media. So their, their reading and writing media, are they more of an auditory learner? Are they gonna need large print? Are they gonna need Braille, or a combination of some of those? So when you're doing a learning media assessment, it consists of some elements that you're gonna evaluate: their current print functioning, their oral reading, silent reading, their listening skills, their computer monitor access, and their near reading and writing, and again, their distance reading and writing. So then I think we'll move on to the kits that we offer, the FELMA kits, and some of the components of this kit consists of a guidebook. You get an expanded core curriculum, yearly screening form. I know the FELMAs are done annually or every 3 years, depending on the agency you work for. So you would get a screening form in an expanded core curriculum, screening record, an if and then chart, a resource list, protocols and assessment checklist, a functional vision and learning media, the interviews and observations that you would need to do, and the functional vision and learning media report. So you get a lot of things available to you in this kit that you can use. It has everything available that you would need for the evaluation. And then the next slide, I think, has our first student profile, or no, we have a poll question. I think, yep, looks like we have a poll question here.
Yep, we do have a poll question. Had to get there. So we want to know which of the following assessments combine to make the FVA, the Functional Vision Assessment. Choose all that apply. The low vision exam and eye report review, interviews, observations, an IQ test, O&M screening and phys ed observation, intervention and accommodations, or the president's physical fitness test. Which of those all combine to make up the FVA? Choose all that apply. Low vision exam and eye report review, interventions, observations, an IQ test, O&M screening and phys ed observation, interventions and accommodations, and the president's physical fitness test.
Thank you, Paul. While we haven't had any questions dropped in the chat about the FVLMA, please know that that's an option. I've also dropped in the links to where we keep our webinar recordings. We do record our webinars and we will post them in about a week's time at the aph.org Educational Resources Training Access Academy link. You'll be able to find them there. And for those of you turning in for credit, I've also dropped a link to where you'll submit your certificate request information. We are leaving the chat on so you can drop in questions. And for the poll, about 61% have voted. So take a moment and complete the poll. All right, I'll go ahead and reveal our early results. So which 5 of the following assessments combined to make the FVA? This was multiple choice. 100% said low vision exam and eye report review. 98% said observations. 78% said O&M screening and phys ed observation. 75% said interventions and accommodations. And 93% said interviews. Yes, it's fun how this changes even while people are taking the polls. Only 4% said IQ test and 3% said the president's physical fitness test. All right, we're going to go ahead and close the poll and hand it to Justine to let us know what the correct answers were.
Oh, I was supposed to pay attention.
No worries.
So you were exactly.
Should I do it? Do you want me to take it? So all the ones are correct,
Sure.
except for the IQ test and the president's physical fitness test. Thankfully, that one is definitely not on there. But all the others, the interviews, the eye report, the observations, the O&M screening, and the interventions, those are all part of the FVA.
Absolutely. Great job, everybody. All right. Are we ready to move on?
I think we are.
Okay, so we have our first student profile up here. It's a fictional kind of profile of some components that are results that you might get after you've done a functional vision and learning media assessment. And our first student here, we'll say they have albinism, and I'll kind of briefly go over. Albinism is a hereditary condition including total or partial lack of melanin, which gives color to the eyes, skin, and hair. So vision problems, they can vary depending on which eye structures are affected and how much of the melanin of these structures that they have. So the iris is the colored part of the eye that expands or contracts to control the amount of light that enters the eye. And when the iris has little or no color, the light can enter the eye through the entire iris and not just through the pupil. So this will result in visual distortion, and without enough melanin, the part of the retina that is responsible for the clear central vision, that is going to be affected. So depending on these factors, albinism, they can result in central vision loss. They can have photophobia, which is extreme sensitivity to light, nystagmus, and strabismus, which is the abnormal alignment of one or both eyes. So that's just a little bit about albinism, and you may determine that their visual acuity was 2100. You evaluated their visual fields and found them to be typical. Their color vision is typical, and they need high contrast. So because of their light sensitivity, maybe amber on black works best for the student. And they are photophobic, so they wear a hat or a visor and tinted lenses indoors and outdoors. And their visual perception skills, they were able to match numbers, letters, and sequence pictures with small detail. And you determine that their magnification range was 3x to 4x, and they preferred 18-point print size, and they required lighting with adjustable brightness levels and dimmer switches to reduce glare. So you'd want to seat this student away from a window in the classroom. So that's our first student profile. So we'll let Ben demo some of how ZoomText would be able to help this student.
All right, so I'm gonna share my screen. All right, just to test real quick, can you confirm
Voice enabled.
that you heard that say voice enabled?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Voice disabled.
Okay, so before we take a look at this specific student profile, I just want to go over the basics of the ZoomText interface real quick. On ZoomText, when we install ZoomText, these are going to be the default settings. So if you've used ZoomText before, you'll know that this will look familiar to you. Pointer enhancements are on. We have the large yellow pointer. We have a cursor enhancement and focus enhancement, which is this little red rectangle that follows system focus if I tab around. And magnification is set to 2x. And speech is usually on by default, or it's always on by default. I have it disabled right now. So we have the magnifier tab, and then we have the reader tab where we can modify the voice options. And also by default, keyboard echo is on. It'll echo your words as you type. So these are the defaults. Under this ZoomText menu, I want to point out one thing, or a couple things actually. The first thing you really want to do when you install ZoomText is go to Preferences, Program, and you want to click this checkbox here that says Save ZoomText Settings Automatically when exiting. What this will do is, if you've made any changes and you exit, it will save those changes. I'm recommending this because through my experience of working with a lot of users, when they start their computer up, I'll notice that they immediately go and increase magnification to the size they want, and then maybe they'll turn off pointer enhancements and then turn on color enhancements, for example. And they'll do this every time because maybe they're just not aware that they can save the settings. So if you set that preferences program, if you check this box, once you get your settings set, you don't have to worry about physically going over to the ZoomText menu and saving your settings. So that's the first thing I wanted to point out real quick. Continuing under the ZoomText menu, under configurations, this is where you could manually save your settings. The save as default. So say I want my ZoomText to always start at 3x. I like these other settings and I want this to be my default. I would click the ZoomText menu, go to configurations, save as default, and it will prompt me, are you sure you want to save these as your default settings? And I say yes. Also under configurations is an option that says restore factory default. And this way, if you get your settings kind of out of whack and you want to start from scratch, we can go to configurations, restore factory default, and when I click yes, you'll see it bumps me back down to 2, and now speech should be on.
Magnifier.
Yep. And these other settings are there. So you can always return. I'm going to press Alt Caps Enter to turn
Voice
speech
disabled.
off. You can always go reset, restore your factory defaults. So another thing I want to point out while we're here is application settings. We're going to look at this today, how to save custom settings for a specific application. You can save those from here, from this menu. It's not available now, but it will be in a second. You can do this from the menu, or you can press Control Caps Lock S as in Sierra to save your settings. So let's take a look at this student profile of albinism. On the the FEA says, the results say the student needs high contrast, specifically amber on black, and then magnification preferred 3x to 4x. So the first thing we might do is we can set 3 as the default magnification level. So I'll wait for, I'm going to do my color scheme before I go save as default. So for color, on the screen enhancements tab here, I can click this submenu button and I can go to scheme. And we need high contrast. So we could take a look at inverted colors or inverted brightness. Let's bring up Word just to see what this looks like. I'm gonna hit Control Caps Lock U to bring that interface back up. So there are some built-in schemes here that we know about, but this, the FEA specifically says amber on black. So I'm going to go to settings under the color menu here, and I'm going to customize this. So I'm going to click custom, and I'm going to change the effect to 2 color. And on the foreground color, I just have to change this to something else real quick so I can change background color to black. So I'm going to click on more colors, and I'm going to select black and click OK. And then under foreground color, I'm going to go to more colors and select amber, which I believe this is amber. So here's our amber on black. I'm going to click OK. So this is an example of how you can really customize ZoomText to the user's preference. Again, I have the built-in schemes that I can use, but if those don't really work, I could go to settings and then set this custom setting to the color scheme I want. And so now I'll go ahead and click ZoomText menu, configurations, save as default, and I'm going to save that. So now when I start ZoomText up, it will start at just like this with these settings. And we know that, so the magnification, the preferred magnification range is 3x to 4x. The student can bump that up here. Let's say that right now we have speech off, and for most applications that the student is fine with not having speech. But let's say in Word, they prefer having speech feedback. It's just helpful. I'm going to turn speech on with Alt Caps Enter.
Voice enabled.
So
There. Hello.
now I can.
End of line. There. How are you?
So now I can read
Hello
this.
there. How are you?
So instead of having to press Alt Caps Enter every time I go into Word, or pressing it again to disable it when I leave Word, this is an example where we can use application settings. So I'm going to press Control Caps S as in Sierra, and we're prompted, do you want to save application settings for Microsoft Word? I'm going to say yes.
Document one word.
So all my other settings are the same, but now when I switch to Word, speech should come on automatically. And when I go away from Word, speech should be disabled. So I'm going to Alt Tab.
Task switching. Book 1 Excel.
To Excel.
Book 1 Excel.
Now, when I'm in Excel, we'll hear now that it stopped talking, right? Because the default settings kicked in. If I Alt Tab back to Word and move around.
Hello there. How are you?
So the application specific settings saw that, hey, speech should be on, or focus is in Word. So that's an example of application settings. So let's go, before we move on, I'm going to reset back to my default, the factory settings. Control Caps U will bring
ZoomText.
up my interface, and I'm going to go to ZoomText,
help configurations,
and restore factory default. just to get things back to where they
ZoomText
were.
2000. ZoomText.
And there we are. We're back at 2x. The color scheme is gone. So.
Voice disabled.
All right. And I will stop sharing. There you go.
All right, so thank you for that, Ben. We'll go to the next student profiles here in a moment after we go through our next poll question. And we want to know what keystroke will save the application settings in ZoomText? What keystroke will save the application settings in ZoomText? Is it Control plus Caps Lock plus S, Control plus S, Control plus space, or Control plus Caps Lock? Which one of those saves the application settings in ZoomText?
And Ben, we had two questions come in. The first one is, are these settings also applicable to Fusion?
Yes, good question. Yes, they are. You could do exactly what I just did in Fusion.
Great.
You can set those color schemes and save.
Oh, great. And can ZoomText be installed on Chromebooks or iPads?
No, unfortunately, it can't. It's only used with Windows.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that. All right. And remember, folks, continue to put your questions in the chat. I will always save them and ask Ben or Justine when we get to another break. So at this point, we've had just 48% vote in our keystroke poll. So take another moment. As always, if you can't access the poll, you can feel free to drop your answer in the chat. So for the question, what keystroke will save the application settings in ZoomText? 62% voted Control plus Caps Lock plus S, 30% voted for Control plus S, and 10% selected Control plus Caps Lock. Ben, can you let us know which is the correct answer?
Yes, it is Control Caps Lock S.
Great, thank you. So
And
majority got it.
I did just see a quick question. Somebody asked where they could find the hotkeys for ZoomText. You can. I'll show this when I share my screen on the next one. But you can click on ZoomText menu, and then there's a in that file menu, there's an option for command keys, and that'll bring up a searchable list of the command keys. So you can find them there.
Great, thank you. And Ben, I've saved those other questions that we can get to. We've got a lot of content to get through today, so we'll hold those questions just until we get to another pause.
I think we lost Justine. Did we get her back?
I'm back.
Oh, good. Okay. I pulled the slide up just in case I needed to go through it.
Thank you. Our next student profile is of a student that has retinitis pigmentosa, which is known as RP. And this is an inherited eye condition and is a slow, progressive deterioration of the retina and usually begins in the peripheral fields. And this results in reduced peripheral vision. And they normally, individuals with RP will have night blindness, and RP can eventually lead to total blindness. So in our findings, after doing an FVLMA, we could find that the student had 20/80 visual acuity, visual fields, again, that peripheral vision loss. Their color vision was distorted. They could match some colors, but not colors, not all the colors. And they perceived colors best in bright light. Their contrast needs were the high contrast colors, black on white. They had some light sensitivity issues with night blindness. Their visual perception skills, they were able to find hidden objects, draw missing parts, cut out simple shapes, and copy numbers and letters. Has frequent eye and head movements, bumps into objects, and then they would need training to scan their environment and would need some O&M training. Their magnification range was 2x to 3x, and their preferred print size was 14 point, and they need bright lights, overhead lighting to see. They struggle in low lighting environments, and you would want to position this student, in this case, near the window in the center of the classroom, so they can get the best positioning for lighting and to see with their central vision straight ahead at what's being demonstrated in the front of the classroom. So that's our second student profile.
All right. Okay, so I restored my factory settings, so I'm back to default. I do have speech disabled. So this student, we want to use high contrast, black on white. And we have, under color, we have black and white. We can see here that that set those color settings for us. So in this student wants between 2 and 3x. So maybe, you know, depending on the student preference, maybe we'd set the default to start at 2.5. So I'm just going to go save those real quick. And let's say we want to change the pointer. Say that the student would rather have maybe a larger pointer, maybe one that's a different color. Under scheme on the pointer settings, we have, again, just like under color, we have all these built-in schemes: giant, green, yellow with full crosshairs. Let's say this student is fine with large yellow. They just want to take a look at some different color options of the pointer itself. So we can click on pointer, go to settings, and I'm going to click custom again to set up a custom. Here's where we have standard size or extra large. We'll just make it extra large for now. And let's say we want the color, you know, we're not sure what, say one of these is the colors we want. We can go to more colors and pick, you know, just to try some things out. We could modify this pointer locator, which is, let's make it a circle. So anytime I'm stationary, it'll show up, and when I move, it'll go away. Or I can say show it when the pointer is moving, and then when I stop, it goes away. Or we can use a modifier key. So again, we can really customize this to whatever the user wants to do. And let's say this user also likes to have speech in Word, but they're not crazy about this voice. They want to try a different voice. So I clicked on the Reader tab here. Let's click on this submenu.
Add remove voices.
And let's go to Add Remove Voices.
Add remove vocalizer expressive voices. Select a language, English.
I just pressed Control to get that to stop talking. So here's a list of premium voices that we can choose from. Here's one that I already have installed that's Australian.
English.
If I want to hear that example.
Place
My name is Lee and I am an Australian English voice available for use with Freedom Scientific products such as JAWS.
So there's a ton of available voices. And so you can select the voice, you can play the sample. If you like it, you can install it, and this will download and install. And these are free. It's not an additional cost. You do need to be able to, you need administrative settings to install these on the machine. But so this user could install or change the voice. Let's just change it just for fun. We'll change it to Samantha.
English, United States. Play
My
sample.
name is Samantha and I am a United States English voice available for use with Freedom Scientific products such as JAWS.
So this one's already installed. So I'm going to close this
ZoomText
and then go back to
voice
submenu.
Voice settings.
Go to settings.
Voice.
And we could change
Voice
that
setting.
from
Tom Compact.
From Tom to Samantha.
Samantha Premium High, United States. ZoomText.
And now that's my Samantha voice. And so
Pointer.
I'm going to save
ZoomText
these.
application set configurations. Save as to ZoomText magnifier reader. ZoomText.
And now those are my default settings. So like we customized the color settings last time under custom, we could see that we could also do that under pointer, and we could also do it in cursor and focus as well. So once again, before the next demonstration, I'm going to just restore back to default.
ZoomText help in configurations. Say open ZoomText to ZoomText.
Now I'm back to
magnifier.
Back to my default settings, factory default settings.
Okay, are we ready for the third profile?
Yes.
Okay. So our third student profile is of a student that has Stargardt's. And Stargardt's disease, sometimes called juvenile macular degeneration, it results in the deterioration of the macula. So the macula is the small portion of the retina that's responsible for the detailed central vision that gives you that clear kind of vision for reading and detail. So the condition is hereditary and progressive, and people with Stargardt's lose their central vision. And they also frequently experience difficulties with photophobia and adjusting to changes in lighting conditions. And they usually retain their peripheral or side vision. So after doing an FELMA on this student, you may find that their visual acuity was 2200. The visual fields loss was their central vision. Their color vision had some distortion. They could match the bright contrast colors, but had difficulty with the lighter shades of color. They weren't able to match those. And then they also need the high contrast color. Maybe they prefer the white text on a black background. And they have light sensitivity. They're photophobic, so they wear sunglasses outdoors. In their visual perception skills, they had difficulty reading long passages. They had eye fatigue. They turn their head to look at objects. They have difficulty seeing detail in pictures and skipped over some letters and numbers. And they needed more time for scanning and adjusting to their lighting changes. And their magnification range was in the 5x to 7x magnification level. In their print size, they needed 48-point font size. And their lighting preferences was using a desk lamp with warm white color bulb with high brightness level. And you'd want to position this below the eye level on the opposite side of their writing hand. and seat them either on the far right or left side of the classroom so they could use their peripheral vision for scanning and seeing the classroom setting better. That's our third student.
Okay. So I will share. Okay, so just real quick, under the ZoomText menu, here's that command keys option. If you look at that, here's where you can see a list of all the hotkeys, and you can do a search if you're looking for a specific key. That's where that is. Okay, so we're back in the factory settings. I have speech disabled for the moment. So this student needs high contrast, and specifically white on black. So under color scheme, we have white and black. So we can change that. It's a built-in settings. And magnification 5x to 7x. So we're going to go 5x. We'll start at 5x. We'll make that our default setting. Now, one thing I want to point out here is we can see that now we're going to save our default settings at 5x, but I want to point something out called favorite zoom levels. We can see that to go from the default 2x to 5x, I've got to, press the mouse. It takes, I don't know, 6-7 times command, whether you're using caps lock, up arrow, the keystroke, or using the arrow keys here to the increase or decrease magnification buttons. I want to show a feature that you may not know about. I'm going to click on this button here that's under Zoom Windows. And we have this favorite zoom level setting, okay? And by default, it's set to use all zoom levels. I'm going to change it to favorite zoom levels only. And I'm going to uncheck some of the smaller ones. We'll leave 4 on there. And 5, 6, 7, and 8. So let's say this user only really uses those. They don't need any others. We'll put 4.5 as well. So if I apply this, and now if I arrow down and up, it skips over the levels I don't use. So it goes 4, 4.5, 7, 8, and it doesn't get bigger than 8. I don't need that. So again, depending on, and I left 1, let's see here. Yeah, 1 is always an option, 1x. So I just wanted to point this out in case a student only uses certain magnification levels. They can get to their preferred zoom level faster by using this setting. Okay, so we're going to set at 5 is our default. And this user has, the student has, they get eye fatigue. So we might take a look at using a reader feature. I'm going to enable voice.
Voice enabled.
I'm going to slow this.
Decrease voice.
I'm going to slow the rate down, how fast.
80 words per minute.
Yeah, I'm going to leave it there for now. Let's take a look at mouse echo real quick. This may be, mouse echo may be something that the student doesn't need all the time, but when they get eye fatigue, they may like it. I have it set to hover.
Hover checked.
And what this means is
mouse.
If I hover my pointer over some text.
Hello there. How are you?
It'll read it to me.
Font.
So say there's an icon on the desktop that's difficult. They're not sure what the text says, or really something in a document, text in a document, or in a file menu, like I'm up in the ribbons here.
Layout.
I'm not clicking or anything. I'm just putting my mouse pointer over it. This option of mouse echo may really come in handy. And if they don't want it on all the time, you know, they can just press Alt Caps Enter.
Voice disabled.
To disable voice, and now it's off. But what we might do is set the default settings to have this on. So we'll save our mouse echo, and then when ZoomText starts up, if they're having eye fatigue, they can leave it on. If not, they can just toggle it off with either clicking this voice button under the reader tab or using the keystroke.
Voice.
So let's take one more look at an application setting. Let's say 5x is normally fine for, we're in Word here, but let's say when the user goes to Excel, or the student goes to Excel, you notice that they're always increasing magnification. Let's turn voice on so we can hear what level that is.
Voice enabled. 7.
Okay, so let's say 7 actually works better in Excel for this user. I want to say this is my application settings. So when I switch to Excel, it'll automatically jump to
C4.
I'm going to actually disable speech.
Voice disabled.
Alt Caps Enter is what I press there. So I'm going to save this with Control Caps S is in Sierra. Save applications for Excel. Yes. And now if I Alt Tab back to Word, it should bump me back down to 5x when it kicks in. Oh, look, I didn't delete my application settings from the other user. That's interesting. So it did kick me back to 5x, but it changed the color scheme to amber on black. I may be confusing ZoomText because I've done so many configurations in the last few seconds. But so we can see it kicked. Let's see if it did put it at 5. I put it to 3. So let me show you this again. Let me restore. Oh, one good thing to point out, application settings. I can go to manage application settings and delete these. So I think I may have some conflicting ones. So I'm going to delete this word. And I'm going to open default. And just for the sake of time here, let's
task switching. Book one Excel. SDFS.
Yeah, so it kicked in my application setting for Excel there. So that's how you would do that. And if you do run into something like that where it kicks in, or it brings up, it loads an application setting that you're not sure of why it's doing it, you can go to manage application settings and delete any old ones that may be interfering with your new ones. So those are the things I wanted to show.
Hey, Ben, before you stop sharing your screen, would you mind demonstrating the lens?
Yes. Let me get out of this. And we'll just go to Word real quick. Actually, let's go to the desktop and I'll show you.
ZoomText 2021. Voice disabled.
So I'm gonna hit Control Caps U. Control Caps U is a nice keystroke because it brings the ZoomText magnifier into the view of where the interface into the view that you're currently in. So if I go to Zoom window here, and I'm going to go to one monitor. So here's the lens option. And when I click, this is the Zoom window setting. So when I turn on lens, it makes it more like I'm moving a little magnifier around the screen. Let me see something. Yeah, I can't. Let me see if what I was doing to see if I could resize this. Some of these magnifications views you can't resize. I'm going to check on whether or not we can resize this real quick, and I'll let you know. But that's what Lens looks like by default. When you first install ZoomText, yeah, it's in full zoom window mode, but you do have these other options here. Does that answer that question?
Yes, I think it does. Well, we have a few more questions in the chat, but we're about 8 minutes till the end of the webinar. So let's go through our remaining content and see if we can get to those questions.
Do we want to pull up that poll question, or do we want to skip it?
Let's do the poll question, and maybe we can answer some questions while people are filling it out. So we'll launch that last poll.
So this is a true or false question. So true or false, you can restore ZoomText settings to factory default. True or false, you can restore ZoomText settings to factory default.
And Ben, a question came in. If folks have questions that they'd like answered after this webinar, where should they email you?
The best one is to, it's the Freedom Scientific Training email.
Okay.
I believe it's training at Freedom Scientific.
Training at Vispero.com.
Oh yeah, Vispero. Yeah, that's it.
Training at Vispero. Great.
Mm-hmm.
I'll type that in the chat at Vispero.com. And some more questions. Can the controls for ZoomText also be enlarged? I saw that when you increase the magnification, generally those controls became larger, but is that something you're able to do?
So yeah, as I increase magnification, the ZoomText interface where we see those, like the color button, the pointer button, and those submenus, they'll also be magnified. You can't resize, like you can't drag like the ZoomText window like you can resize like the Microsoft Word window. You can't resize that, but when you increase or decrease magnification, it will affect the ZoomText interface so you can see those items better.
Great, thank you for that, Ben. All right, we've had 68% vote in our final poll. For the question true or false, you can restore ZoomText settings to factory default. 100% got it correct. It is true. You saw Ben demonstrate that a number of times, restoring ZoomText to factory default. So thank you guys for taking that poll. And yes, a question just came in. Is there a place as reference for the keyboard commands? And Ben, just remind our audience where you found those on ZoomText.
Yes, so I clicked the ZoomText menu, which is in the top left, or I can press Alt-Z. I click the ZoomText menu, and under that there is a command keys item. And if you click on command keys, it will open up that list of the active hotkeys. And then there's a search box there. So say you wanted to learn how to, turn what the keystroke is for color enhancements, you could go there, or to turn color enhancements on or off, you could type in color and it would find it in that list, and you could see that it was caps lock C. You can also just hover your pointer over on the interface. You can hover your mouse pointer over the button, like for example, the color or pointer or cursor enhancement button, and the little pop-up will show you what the keystroke is.
Great, thanks for that, Ben. All right, let's wrap up this webinar with our remaining slides.
All right, so let's talk about what we've discovered today. We've discovered that ZoomText can be configured to individual student needs, that you can maximize your access for students with low vision to a variety of applications, that FVLMA is a great way to assess student ability, and ZoomText can meet a variety of student needs. So what we want to make sure you understand is that you can customize ZoomText in whatever way you want for individual students. You can save those settings. You can still change them. And if you get yourself confused or lost, or you really want to just go back and start over, you can always reset them to factory default. So ZoomText is much more customizable than people may have realized. And that's definitely a good thing depending on each student's needs. As we know, with low vision, every student needs are a little bit different. And so it's great that we can make those changes in ZoomText. So what's next? If you have questions about ZoomText, want to check on other resources that Freedom Scientific's made available, you can go to the Freedom Scientific Training Center, which is at freedomscientific.com/training. We're going to drop that link into the chat. If it hasn't already been dropped in, it'll be dropped in for you.
It's dropped.
You can also check out the APH ZoomText annual license page. We'll get to that more about that here in a moment. The FVLMA kit. This is a quota product. The price for it is $67. And as you've seen, it's a great way to assess a student's vision, find out what their needs are, what they can handle well, where they may have struggles. That's a $67 item on quota. Our annual licenses, we have JAWS for $90 a year and ZoomText for $80 a year. You can get an annual license from the page that we have or will drop in the chat. You can pick up one or the other. And coming soon, now we had a webinar on this new product yesterday. It's called the Juno Portable Magnifier. It will launch sometime this summer, most likely. Stay tuned for that. We had a webinar introducing it yesterday. That should be available on our website in about a week or so. It's going to be on quota, available for $1,095 or for $1,295, not on quota. So you have two options there once that does release. Stay tuned to all the APH channels and social media and the website for an announcement as to when that's going to drop. And finally, our National Coding Symposium, something that the APH Connect Center is hosting along with the California School for the Blind. It's a free virtual coding symposium from May 11th through the 14th. That's a Tuesday through Friday. You can get more information or sign up at aphconnectcenter.org/coding. So far, we've had some really great response to that. But if you haven't responded yet, absolutely go to that website and check that out and sign up. May 11th through 14th. And we wanted to just bring your attention to Codejumper, our block coding solution to help all students learn it in a different way using sound and audio and all sorts of different sound schemes. $795, I believe, is the quota price, $999 non-quota. So we want to thank you for joining us today.